something to mobility that would be in the way that could cause a hazard. Second, in case there is an emergency today, if we have to exit this facility, we will exit through the front doors, the doors that we came in, and assemble across the street at One Mass, the headquarters for Amtrak. And anybody online that is with us, please make sure you've done an assessment of where you are and have a plan about how to respond if there is an emergency or an incident. Should we need medical assistance today, there are 2 Amtrak police officers on site that are capable of rendering aid and contacting 911. There's an AED located at the end of the hall in the gymnasium, which one of them will retrieve. And there are several of us that are trained in CPR in the room that can render aid if it is necessary. In the world that we live in today, the weather is the #1 conversation and topic. In DC, where we are, Washington, it is very, very warm today. So please make sure you're taking time to mind your health and those that work with us, that they stay hydrated if they are out in the environment and the elements. We also have to talk about the threat of an active shooter. We saw just this week an incident in New York where the guidance of run, hide, fight saved lives. And that's what we subscribe to at Amtrak. If there is an incident involving an active shooter, first we want to remove ourselves from the environment, make sure that we can get out of the situation. 2, if we can't, we want to hide, and this is a great room to hide and barricade the doors. And 3rd, if we're faced with an intruder, that we fight. And we're prepared to do that. And again, there are armed Amtrak officers with us today who will address those situations should they arise. And second, always, always, always be concerned about the cyber threat. It is very prevalent in the world that we live in. Whether it's in the corporate work environment or in your personal life, as a member of the Amtrak board, as a member of the executive leadership team, the iconic brand Amtrak represents a significant target. If you receive an email that you're not expecting, an attachment that you're not expecting that seems unusual, please take the extra step to forward it to the Amtrak cyber team so they can deconflict and make sure that it doesn't introduce any new viruses, any viruses at all, or any malware into our system. So appreciate that. Any questions about our security and safety briefing today before we begin? Great. I will introduce now Bill Herman, General Counsel for Amtrak.
Thank you, Chief Dotson, and good afternoon, everyone. I would like to call this meeting of the Amtrak Board of Directors to order. My name is William Herman. I am the Amtrak Corporate Secretary. Today is July 31st, 2025, and this is a duly noticed meeting of the Amtrak Board of Directors. First, I will take the roll call of the directors present. Would ask that you respond verbally. Tony Kosha, Chair. Here. Joel Zabad, Vice Chair. Here. Paul Nissenbaum, Associate Administrator for Railroad Development, FRA. Here. Mayor Chris Coos. Here. David Capozzi. Here. Elaine Clegg. Here. Lanhee Chen. Here. And Ron Vittori. Here. Thank you. I confirm that we have a quorum present for today's meeting. Mr. Chair, you may proceed with the scheduled agenda.
Thank you, Bill. Welcome to the members of the public who are attending this meeting virtually. If you have comments, we do not take comments or questions during the meeting, but we invite you to submit any comments at the Amtrak.com site to the Board of Directors webpage. We have several items to discuss today, so let's begin with a review of the agenda for today's meeting. We have 4 presentations that are scheduled. Financial report by our CFO, Costin Cornell, commercial operations report by Elliot Hamlish, Chief Commercial Officer, and Gary Williams, the Executive Vice President for Service Delivery and Operations, a capital delivery and project update by Jim Short, Acting Senior Vice President for Capital Delivery, and a report on the NextGen Acela launch by our President, Roger Harris. We'll proceed with the presentations in the order that I just listed. Let's begin with the first presentation. I'd like to invite Costin Cornell to present the financial report. Costin.
Thank you, Tony, and good afternoon to everyone. We'll begin today discussing our consolidated performance for June year-to-date. Through June, we delivered an adjusted operating loss of $471.4 million. with a negative operating margin of 16.2%. This performance is 23.6% better than fiscal year 2024 and 7.2% better than our annual plan due to strong revenue performance and tight cost management, partially offset by higher than expected one-time expenses. Revenue continues to improve year over year as we have been able to add 6% more capacity across the network, which has resulted in record ridership of 25.5 million riders and growth in revenue of 9.7%. Additionally, revenue is favorably impacted by improved ticket yield, which is higher by 3.6% when compared to prior year. Moving to operating expenses, we continue to deliver our planned cost discipline and adjust quickly to evolving market conditions. Through June, expenses have grown mostly in line with inflation, despite being negatively impacted by several one-time items, including higher than expected employee benefit claim costs, one-time impact for unexpected lease settlement costs, and project write-offs. Our financial metrics are performing strongly and compared to prior year have improved RASM, or revenue per available seat mile, by 3.3% and CASM, or cost per available seat mile, by 2.6%. Of note, both operational metrics have improved significantly over the past 4 fiscal years, with RASM growing at a compounded rate of 7.1% and CASM improving 2.2%. We continue to be optimistic about our 2028 goal of passenger train segment operations profitability, followed by Amtrak consolidated operating profitability by the end of the decade. Shifting over to our capital spend, we continue to advance our large-scale projects and invest in improving state of good repair of our rail assets. Through June, we have spent $4.1 billion, which is 54% higher than fiscal year 2024 and 11% lower than our plan. Compared to fiscal year 2024, we are seeing increased investments in our large-scale construction projects, including major bridges, tunnels, and station improvements. Additionally, we continue to pick up momentum in our refleeting efforts with spend in train set and locomotive projects, and additional spend to bring all our stations into ADA compliance. We will continue to review and adjust our forecast for capital spend around our workforce availability, supplier constraints, to maintain our cash balances while staying in alignment with our enterprise goals. Continuing with our capital portfolio, we wanted to share how we've spent the $4.1 billion in capital investments through June. Our largest area investment is within bridges and tunnels projects. Key projects include Portland Bridge, Connecticut River Bridge, East River Tunnel, and Hudson River Tunnel, where we spent approximately $1.2 billion year to date. We continue to invest in our rail assets to improve the state of good repairs and have spent almost $1 billion maintaining our track, catenary, signals, and structures to ensure safe train operations. Finally, we continue to invest in station improvements across the network, bringing our stations and facilities into ADA compliance and advancing our fleet efforts with Acela and Aero. Now that we've discussed our consolidated business performance, I will move to an overview of our 2 business segments: passenger operations and infrastructure. Starting with our passenger business, which includes all our passenger train activities, our performance remains strong, and our adjusted operating loss of $301.7 million is 34.1% better than fiscal year 2024, driven by the aforementioned improvements in capacity and ridership, which resulted in a revenue growth of 9%. The core structural costs within our passenger business continue to perform well, and are only increasing 1.3% compared to fiscal year 2024. Compared to our plan for this year, our adjusted operating loss is 14.2% better. Shifting to our infrastructure business, which manages our rail network and real estate assets, we had an adjusted operating loss of $169.7 million, which is 6.8% worse compared to fiscal year 2024. Higher revenue performance, bolstered by our non-passenger ancillary businesses, was offset by an increase in several non-operational one-time expense items. To turn now to our service line results, starting with the Northeast Corridor operations. Our operationally profitable Northeast Corridor service line is performing strongly and is $103 million or 59% favorable compared to fiscal year 2024. Despite lower capacity from Acela service, revenue within the NEC has grown 12% as ridership and yield are performing better than prior year. Fiscal year 2025 performance would represent a third straight year of growth after the impact of the pandemic, which resulted in a downturn of the NEC business for fiscal year 2021 and into early 2022. We continue to manage our cost structure, which resulted in only a 2.6% growth compared to fiscal year 2024, in line with inflation, despite the impact of certain one-time costs, as mentioned previously. Adjusted for those one-time costs, expenses would have been flat to prior year. Moving to our national network, and more specifically to our state-supported business, the adjusted operating loss through June of $209.4 million is favorable to prior year by 9.6%. We've seen strong revenue growth year over year, as increased capacity of 1.9% are driving improvements in ridership and revenue results, which are $26.3 million better. Ticket yield has grown more than 5% compared to prior year, also contributing to revenue improvement. Overall costs are flat to prior year, with savings in materials and train operations expenses offsetting cost pressures in benefits and labor. Finally, our long-distance business within the national network has an operating loss of $470.4 million, which is favorable to prior year by 3.1%. Consistent with all of our service lines, capacity increases are driving higher ridership and revenue across the long-distance network despite flat ticket yield. Costs are growing in line with inflation as we continue to focus on cost management across all Amtrak. And with that, I'll just turn over to our Chief Commercial Officer, Elliot Hamlisch, for a commercial update. Elliot?
Thank you, Costa. Much appreciated. Good afternoon, all. As Costa mentioned, my name is Elliot Hamlisch, Amtrak's Chief Commercial Officer. Pleased to give you an update on both our commercial and operations report in partnership with Gilly Williams, who will be up shortly, our Chief Operating Officer. Let's start with ridership. Fiscal year to date, June, we have had the opportunity to serve 25.5 million customers, growth of 1.4 million riders versus the same time last year, and we're favorable to our operating annual plan by nearly 570,000 riders. Strong demand and increased capacity are fueling growth across the portfolio, with favorable metrics across the network. The Northeast Corridor, long distance, and state-supported service lines exceeded both year-over-year and annual operating plan performance milestones. Key drivers are many. Among them include strong midweek demand growth on the Northeast Corridor, restoration of services on California routes, and overperformance of the Floridian route relative to our original expectations. Let's take a closer look at performance across each of our three service lines. Starting with long distance, deployment of additional coach and sleeper capacity across the long distance network boosted ridership growth, with year-to-date capacity up 3% versus plan. Turning to state-supported, core demand has been strong, powered by Empire, Pacific Surfliner, Cascades, and Borealis routes. As mentioned earlier, California service restorations also helped the cause. In parallel, we've seen some headwinds that have tempered growth, including the grounding of the Horizon fleet since the end of March and until further notice. We should continue to anticipate throttled ridership growth until the Aero fleet is deployed for the Cascades. Lastly, in the Northeast Corridor, despite Acela capacity constraints that have been driven by challenges with legacy equipment, NER or Northeast Regional quick turns during the first 5 months of the fiscal year and creative commercial tactics, along with increased return to office trends, have helped to boost ridership. As noted earlier and seen here, all 3 service lines exceeded ridership milestones versus both last year and relative to plan. Turning to customer satisfaction, our fiscal year-to-date customer satisfaction index, or CSI score, is 78.1, trailing the same time last year by roughly 0.6 percentage points and 0.5 percentage points behind plan. While close to our goal, the year-to-date underperformance is driven primarily by customer on-time performance, the #1 contributor to CSI scores. Customers who are delayed or face disruptions tend to rate their overall trip experience substantially lower than those who are on time. Events contributing to increased delays include infrastructure or equipment issues, freight train or commuter train interference, and severe weather. Recognizing delays or cancellations often occur with little notice, we're laser-focused on planning well in advance for the myriad circumstances that might arise to ensure that we are well positioned to care for our customers when they need us most, including ensuring we provide fast, relevant, transparent, and reliable communication. We've seen record high communication scores over the past 2 quarters and are continuing to improve our technology, processes, and training to ensure that this trend continues. In addition, we're seeing improved Wi-Fi scores, with year-to-date scores amongst the highest on record, thanks to the great work and focused investment being made by our digital technology team. Let's take a look at how CSI scores break down by service line. The Northeast Corridor has seen the largest negative CSI impact this year, driven largely by lagging on-time performance, which has resulted in scores 1.4 percentage points below last year and 1.3 percentage points below our annual operating plan year-to-date. Well, we're seeing strong scores and strong performance from other 2 service lines, long distance and state-supported. Long distance is overachieving plan by 1.2 points and up 1% versus last year. The Crescent and California Zephyr are among the highest contributors to the long-distance service lines over performance. State-supported routes are roughly 0.5 point above both last year and plan, and we've seen especially strong customer satisfaction scores from riders on California routes. Overall, we remain steadfastly focused on partnering cross-functionally to maximize the number of on-time arrivals across our network and provide an outstanding customer experience, while in parallel, planning well in advance to care for our customers when disruptions occur. With that, I will hand it over to my colleague, Gary Williams, our Chief Operating Officer.
All right. Thank you, Elliot. Good afternoon. I'm Gary Williams, Executive Vice President of Service Delivery and Operations for Amtrak. The on-time performance, Amtrak's customer on-time performance, has decreased by 3 points year over year and is currently 2.4 points below plan, with all 3 service lines below goal. The primary drivers of this performance are extreme weather, reliability issues with our aging fleet, and the volume of major project work being performed on the NEC. We will discuss these issues by service line in more detail on the following slides and the actions we are taking to improve performance. Let's look at the Northeast Corridor first. As you can see, OTP is down 3 points year over year and 5 points versus plan for a variety of reasons. Our teams are working very hard to keep our legacy Acela train sets going, but it is a daily struggle. To give you a sense of the challenge, we have seen engine delays increase by 60% compared over the previous year. Getting our NextGen Acela fleet into service is the biggest thing we can do to improve fleet reliability, so we are really excited about the relief they will provide. In the interim, we have made some changes to our Acela and Northeast regional schedules to minimize delays cascading to afternoon departures. We expect those changes to yield benefits starting next week. The extremely warm weather creates challenges for our infrastructure. We have increased heat patrols to detect wire sag and track movement so we can intervene before defects affect service. And finally, our teams continue to work on the best methods to maintain on-time performance while supporting all the major project work on the corridor that is badly needed for long-term reliability. Moving on to the state-supported service line, we are down 2 points year over year. We've experienced fleet reliability issues that have particularly affected our Midwest operation with major increases in delays on the Hiawatha, Lincoln, Missouri, and Lincoln services. Additionally, the Downeastern Keystone services had significant planned track work projects that made it difficult to deliver reliable performance. Furthermore, the Missouri River Runner had 6 weeks of unexpected significant track work as a result of a derailment of a non-fitting freight train. Lastly, the long-distance service line is down 5 points year over year, with most services struggling to meet goal. As an example, the auto train is down 21 points year over year due to increased freight train interference and slow orders. This created cascading delays on subsequent days as we couldn't turn trains in time for an on-time departure. We have been working closely with our host partners to focus attention on this train, and I am pleased to report that we're seeing much better performance in July, a full 30 points higher than we saw in June. Host responsible delays are favorable year over year. They have been trending down overall during the last couple of years. While there is always seasonal variation with the summer month delays peaking, the year over year trend has been downward. One key factor driving this improvement is that Norfolk Southern delays have decreased 29% year over year. Performance across their network has significantly improved since last July and is particularly noticeable on long distance routes such as the Crescent and Lakeshore Limited. Over the past several months, we have engaged with Norfolk Southern to review schedules and identify areas where we can work together to further improve performance. Unfortunately, the impact of host improvements has been offset by increases in Amtrak and third-party delays. We have seen a 22% increase in equipment-related delays versus last year. We are working closely with our OEMs to address infancy issues we have found in some locomotives and are making changes to our maintenance quality processes to reduce the line of road failures. Also, third-party weather delays have increased 10% year over year. Heat order delays are a particular concern, especially on certain hosts. We continue to work closely with our host railroad partners to ensure safe and timely operations of our trains. Train consist fulfillment. Our train consist fulfillment is in line with historical trends despite challenges. Lack of availability and reliability of our older non-powered control units or cab cars. Lack of any spare equipment along with the Midwest fleet size and reliability, and the substitution of club dinettes for venture cafes as they are continuing to be delivered are the main drivers. All right, thank you. and I'll turn it over to Jim Short.
Thanks, Gary. Good afternoon. My name is Jim Short. I'm the acting senior vice president for capital delivery. I'm going to take you through some slides to talk about our capital program and the progress that we made here in fiscal year 25. It's a bit of a busy page, but it really provides a great view of our portfolio. It's a massive portfolio of 236 active projects, not just here on the corridor what's shown in the picture, but projects in Chicago and Seattle and other places around the United States. We highlight the Northeast corridor because that's where most of it is, but it's not all here. This encompasses 9 major programs, 56 maintenance programs. These are our annual maintenance programs to maintain the corridor, and 92 individual improvement projects. What you can see here is that our portfolio is a total life cycle portfolio. Starting in conceptual design, you can see the various colors of the dots on the map and progressing all the way into field construction activity, which are the green dots. I think a particular note here is all the green. A tremendous amount of projects in construction right now, and the numbers that Costin shared earlier reflect that. The huge increase in capital spend that we are undertaking here in capital delivery is because of all those green dots that are in construction. So we've organized this slide based on how we're organized as a department. We're organized by our major bridges, our major stations, our fleet and facilities programs, et cetera. But it just really shows you the depth and breadth of the operation that we've got going here in capital delivery. I'm going to walk you through a couple of projects just to highlight some of the ones that are in the headlines recently. Our East River Tunnel Rehab Program up in New York City. This is a tunnel modernization program. That's a Superstorm Sandy is what caused the damage to these tunnels many years ago. This rehab program will also increase the safety and reliability of these tunnels. So there's actually 4 tubes. This project will deal with 2 of those tubes. One tube is currently out of service. It's a full 13-month outage to take that tunnel out of service. We have completed a tremendous amount of the demolition work already. The overhang cantilever has already been removed. The existing rails have been removed. All of the ballast has been removed. It's basically a clean tunnel right now, except for what's called the bench walls. These are concrete bench walls that run across the entire length of the tunnel, and we are just now starting the demolition of those bench walls. I'm happy to report this $1.6 billion project is currently slightly ahead of schedule, which is great news. And so we're happy with our contractor, Skanska. It's a joint venture, doing just tremendous work on the job. Our safety performance is strong as well. Our next project to talk about is the BMP, or Baltimore Potomac Tunnel Replacement Program. This project was authorized a number of years ago. The vision is to put in 2 electrified tubes to replace the existing BMP tunnel itself, which is about a 150-year-old structure. And if you've seen some of the pictures, that's pretty amazing, the condition of that tunnel, but I know that our crews keep after that all the time to make sure that current tunnel remains safe while we construct these new tunnels. There's a lot of work going on in the field already. You can see by the photos the utility relocation work. There's a 126-inch stormwater pipe that is currently being relocated. Think about that, 10.5-foot diameter stormwater pipe currently being relocated. That's the picture in the top left there. It's called a siphon pit. It's about 60 feet deep, and there's one on each side of the active track so that we can run these new 126-inch storm lines underneath the Northeast Corridor. Just a huge project just to do that piece of work. Now, that's the utility relocation work. There's some others going on as well. Temporary water lines are running. Project budget is $6 billion. It's got some cost pressure on it, so we're working with FRA right now to support them in a value engineering effort and working closely with them to support that program while in parallel with keeping the program moving. Next is our great 30th Street Station in Philadelphia. This is a tremendous project, about $760 million to renovate Philadelphia Street Station and all of the concession space, the office towers, the north and south towers, to really bring it up into a state of good repair is the facility. This will enhance the customer experience as well as the retail space, increasing revenues from the concession space available in the station. So it's a great amount of work. I've toured this project a couple of times over the last several months. It's just making great progress. The contractor is leading, again, great safety performance on the project, and it's moving quite well. I don't know the schedule off the top of my head, but I think we're going to do the South Concourse, back into the South Concourse very soon. Moving away from the projects, I want to talk about a couple programmatic issues, I'll call them. These are, some might call these back office functional processes, but they're really important that we get it right to keep the projects on schedule. The projects being on schedule isn't just the people at the work face getting the work done. It's all the supporting activities to make sure they stay on track, including design reviews. We hired a new vice president of engineering services a short time ago. A huge amount of effort put into advising our design review process. Really important, because as these designers submit their designs, new tunnels, new bridges, those all have to go through engineering services to make sure those designs are compliant with our technical design requirements. So that process needs to move very, very smoothly. Any delays in that will delay the contractor and delay the project schedule. So we've done a lot of work to clarify those responsibilities, improve the accuracy of our forecasting of when these things will be ready, standardizing or pre-screening comments, seeing a tremendous amount of benefits here. You can see the data. Our submitted duration was reduced from 135 days to 105 today, just over the last few quarters or few years. So really paying gains. We do look at the risk of the particular issues, the durations that's in the contract, as well as the project delivery method. We may have heard in previous meetings talk about the different project delivery methods that we've employed with design bid build versus design build versus construction manager risk. So each of those have different mechanisms of design review. This one I'm going to talk about is NEPA. So first, what is NEPA? NEPA is the National Environmental Policy Act. There's a whole bunch of other acts within that NEPA umbrella. What triggers that really gets triggered by federal action, grants, permits, anything that requires federal funding have to go through a NEPA process. This process tended to take a long time. Getting projects delayed on the project schedules because of the NEPA process. There's three levels that we work with. Here's categorical exclusions, environmental assessments, and environmental statements. Most Amtrak projects go through the categorical exclusion process, which is the easiest process to get through, although that's not easy. More difficult one is the go to the full environmental impact statement. Those processes can take years. So what did we do? With the FRA, starting the fall of last year, we started working with them and say, what can we do differently? What can we do to shorten the process but not compromise the quality of the outcomes that we were looking for because we had so many projects in the pipeline. So we zeroed in on the categorical exclusion process, which about 99% of our projects go through that particular process. They do require FRA approval, at least they did. If they can't have any significant environmental impacts, the project would be excluded from additional review. Where we work with the FRA in place are actually 5 programmatic CEs. And so what those did is provided us an umbrella that we could operate within, where about 50% of our projects are now approved by Amtrak without even going to the FRA, because we have these umbrellas that we've agreed with them on what we could do on our own. So it falls under an umbrella approval, but it's really reduced the schedule impact to our projects by this efficiency that we implemented with the FRA. Again, I know those two things aren't exciting, the big project stuff of moving dirt and digging tunnels and that kind of thing, but those back office type processes to get those efficiencies enable efficient construction to take place in the field. So we'll share those with this group today. We continue to ramp up construction activity. We're forecasting a higher level of capital spend in FY26 versus FY25. We have a high focus on the fleet program that Roger's going to talk to in just a second with our NextGen Acela. And our whole focus is to continue to deliver our infrastructure and train sets efficiently and safely. Thank you very much, Roger.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Roger Harris, president of Amtrak, and I want to thank Jim for, I think, a great and very educational update there on something that's such an important part of the company today. As you heard from Costin, we've spent $4.1 billion on capital projects so far this year. So it's extremely important that we get them right. Well, on to Acela. And let me talk about Acela for a minute. We are so excited to announce next generation Acela, which is what you can see here on the screen. It was 25 years ago that Amtrak introduced America to high-speed trains with the first Acelas. It was a hit from the start. It helped Amtrak double its market share in the Northeast Corridor and became not only a household name, but a well-recognized brand. I think many of you have heard of people taking Acela, or even a few years ago, the term Acela Corridor became very popular. Since then, more than 69 million customers have enjoyed Acela, making it the way to travel between major cities in the Northeast US, including New York City, Washington, Philadelphia, Boston, Providence, and Baltimore. We're excited to introduce NextGen, made by one of the world leaders in high-speed rail. This American-made fifth-generation high-speed train created work for more than 15,000 workers across the country in 29 different states. We're excited because with over 25% more seats per train, more people can enjoy every Acela departure. And with a larger fleet, we're on track to double ridership on Acela. And here I think we have a video that should be playing. Here we go. So I hope that was inspiring. So what is Acela? Acela is convenient. It will be easy to find your next Acela with its sleek new looks, pre-trip notifications, advanced seat assignments, and new digital signs at every door that tell you destination, train number, and car number. And that's something that many customers have been asking for a long time to make sure they're getting the right train in the right place. On board, you'll find improved wayfinding and digital signs with up-to-date information about your trip, which is what the sign you can see on the right-hand side there, the kind of information you can expect during your journey. The ride is great, smooth and quiet with active tilt for taking corners, ergonomic premium leather seats, big panoramic windows with improved lighting, touchless accessible restrooms in every car. And speaking of accessibility, Braille high contrast fonts for signage and audio induction loops throughout the train to improve onboard navigation. Talking about amenities, these are great too. 5G enabled Wi-Fi, which our customers will definitely enjoy the difference. Individual reading lights and power outlets at every seat. And for those of you who are familiar with traveling on Amtrak, on Acela, that means no more reaching across your seat neighbor to plug in your laptop, which I know can be an annoyance for a lot of people. And little touches like cup holders and extendable individual trays at tables to make it easier to keep yourself organized and be productive while you're working on the train. And we have Cafe Acela, fresh, healthy gourmet foods, some of which you may have seen already as we've been rolling them out over the past 12 months. We've seen a huge increase in customer appreciation for the food products that we're offering on board. And once you've selected your food item, you can see in the middle photograph there, customer helping themselves to one of the items in the display case. We have new TurboChef ovens for heating the product, so we have a far better ability to deliver the food product in the way that ensures good taste. And we'll have, as I mentioned, we have the grab and go display coolers, which should make it far more convenient for customers. And during peak hours on the train, we'll also be offering cart service at your seat, so customers won't have to get up from their seat, but the attendant will come by and offer them food and beverage for purchase. And then first class. Well, it's really an old favorite reinvented with a modern, elevated interpretation. And that means people will be able to enjoy the exclusive service that they have come to expect, with complimentary at-seat dining with menu items developed in conjunction with Steven Star restaurants, which I know many of you in the Northeast are familiar with. Dedicated first-class attendant, choice of double or individual seats, as on the current generation of Acelas, extra legroom, and of course, complimentary access to our Metropolitan Lounge access. So I know that the question on everybody's mind is, when will these be coming? The great news is that we've gone through the entire approval process with the Federal Railroad Administration. We appreciate all of their support. We have permission for initial operation, and we're going through the process of accepting and taking delivery of the first 5 units from the manufacturer, which is the final step in our process, and we'll be announcing that first date of revenue service very, very soon. Thank you, everybody.
Great. Thank you to all for the presentations and the informative reports. Before we conclude, I'd like to open up the floor to any final questions or comments from my fellow directors. If anyone wants to add something. Okay, hearing none. If there's no further questions or comments, I'd like to thank everyone for their participation today. This concludes our public meeting. The next meeting of the Board of Directors will be held on September 10th and 11th, 2025. and information about that meeting will be posted on amtrak.com. We'll now conclude the public session of our meeting. Thanks to everyone and have a great day.